Welcome to Lifestyle Choices. This is part 2 of Disrobing and Why I Left the Monastery. So in this section I told you that I was gonna talk about what happened when I came back to the States. A number of things happened. First, the girl that I wanted to confront did not succeed, which was a good thing because it resolved that problem. For about a year, I traveled in California and lived in different places. I lived in an ashram. I lived in a bed and breakfast, which I managed. I lived out of my car. I lived with somebody I found on with a friend I found on through Facebook groups. I traveled around California, south and west, on a trip where I interviewed the residents of different monasteries. It was a pretty good year. However, I was also working. I started working as a driver. I was driving Uber and Lyft. I found that my clarity of mind was gradually decreasing. And I attributed that to not having the supportive environment that I had when I was at the monastery. So now I was no longer constantly subjected to Buddhist ideas, meditative ideas. I had to generate all of it on my own. And as it turned out, my personal discipline and practice was not sufficient to maintain that energy that I had gained and which produced this clarity and this general sense of peace and harmony that I had when I was at the monastery. So at this time, I was still feeling pretty good. Then I traveled to Louisville, Kentucky, and I stayed with my parents, which was very difficult. Now that environment was quite different from California. Suddenly, I had much less influence again. Like the spiritual environment was much less even than in California, because in California I had a lot of friends. I was going to meditation groups. It was very active, and there was when I lived at a Hindu ashram. There was a daily meditation practice. There was yoga, and the philosophy is very similar to what I experienced in a monastery in Myanmar. So now, as I came to Louisville, Kentucky, and was staying with my parents, all of that was gone, and now I was pretty much completely on my own, and also found that driving Uber was not really worth my time because I was barely making anything, and it was very stressful. That time was very difficult for me, and I had a bit of a emotional breakdown at that time. Um, well, my parents helped me to purchase a house which I had remodeled. We had agreed to make an investment together, and I ended up moving into this new house and renting out the extra bedroom. So now I was again independent, and I was making a little bit of an income from the rental, which was a step forward for me. I also I got a membership at an art studio where I did some painting again, which was quite nice, gave me some happiness, and I did some woodworking. It was good to get back to being creative and having a space to work. Next thing that happened was I got in a relationship, and the relationship was quite challenging from the start. And the main challenge was from the beginning for me was that I found myself having to wrestle with my spirituality and my relationship. I felt that somehow I was not. I was. It was very difficult for me to integrate the two. It was like I was either on the monastic side or on the relationship side, and my mind just couldn't make it work. It had a certain toll on the relationship. The relationship lasted for quite some time. Actually, it continued for a year and a half, and in the end, it ended. And I had actually had a fear, well, this kind of feeling from the beginning that I would have a heartbreak during period of my 6 year experiment. And this definitely was a heartbreak. I don't want to go into detail of what happened other than to say that for the first time I really felt that I was heartbroken. And partly why is because I could see myself getting married to this woman. And I even could see myself having children in the future. So the relationship coming to an end was really something that I never experienced before, and the heartbreak was something very new to me. And I can say that as painful as it was also good, valuable experience because it caused me to again reevaluate a lot of the things that I believed about myself. It caused me to understand different parts of my sexuality, which I was never in touch with before this relationship. And it gave me a different outlook on the future as well, as a potential for myself. Another thing to say is that as far as my spiritual practice goes, my meditation suffered terribly for the majority of this relationship, and my sense of well-being was pretty low generally. There are definitely many happy times, but somehow this happiness was often connected with the dramas of our relationship and the ups and downs and the pushes and pulls. But overall, as for my spiritual state, I would say that it dropped to a baseline. So where I was when I was at the monastery was pretty much all gone. At least is how it seemed to me. So where I'm at now. Now it has been just about 4 years. Now I have 2 years of the 6 years left. I am looking forward to making the next 2 years more of a success story than the first four. I would really like to see myself rebuild some of the spiritual energy that I lost. That may take the form of having to be more self-disciplined and be more systematic in my approach. And actually, I think I will make a video on that next, as for what I have tried and what my current system is that I've implemented for tackling the next 2 years. And we will see and monitor how this works in the long run. So, yeah, I would like to improve my general state of well-being, which is already on the rise. I am still open to new relationships. This is what this time is for. And I'm still committed to being a layman, which means having to work, having to divide my daily life between my meditation practice and my working schedule, between my social engagements, my family, my friends, between my other interests such as reading, art making, researching and studying. And it's all a learning opportunity. It's all a big experiment. So I think that's about all I wanted to talk about for this video. If you find any of this interesting or helpful, or you know somebody else who might be going through something similar or who could find this information helpful or useful, share, like the video if you like it, subscribe if you find this kind of content interesting. I talk about monasteries here a lot, retreats. I talk about positive changes in lifestyle. I talk about my lifestyle. So like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.